Here's your host, Dan Celia.
Welcome back, Financial Issues. I'm Dan Celia. It's great to be here, and we've got some economic data coming out that we've got to talk about. It's very, very interesting data. It is confirmation of some things that I've been talking about, and I want to talk about those things. And we're going to take your calls, as always. 866-300-9298 is our phone number, 866-300-9298. So we will get to calls. If you want to queue your call up, you're welcome to do that. But we first want to talk about some economic data. The first piece of data coming out this morning with January housing starts. January housing starts were down 16%. Now you say weather. Well, certainly weather has to factor into it somewhere along the line. We know that, right? So certainly weather's got something to do with it. But here's the thing. Housing starts were up. So even though, not housing starts, I'm sorry. Starts were up 62%. It was just that the rest of the construction continuation was down. So that says a little bit about the weather wasn't as big an impact. Remember, this is nationally. There was some increases in, the West and the South that carry some of this as well. But here's the thing. Down 16%, 880,000 units. Now, the reason I bring this up is because the forecast was 945,000. That would have been down too. But I'm trying to figure out why, and I'm as guilty of this as anybody. Why are we even thinking about what the economists are talking about? They have no inability. They have no ability to correctly or even get close to any kind of prediction in the last 3 years. Ben Bernanke hasn't hit one thing. So, I shouldn't be surprised. But the point being here is this is not a good number. This is not a good number. It's a huge swing considering that December's number was revised upward to 1.05 million, makes this number even worse. That's why we have a 16% drop. So that is a huge number. Again, is it the weather or is it some indication of what is to come? Is it a matter of consumer confidence? Is it a matter of discretionary income? Is it a matter of people saying, hey, I'm staying where I am, too much uncertainty, I'm not doing anything. U.S. producer prices climbed 0.2%. That would be the headline number is also the core, the same when you strip out food and energy up 0.2%. That makes a 12-month unadjusted at 1.2%. So consumer producer prices also climbed. Now that is also this time around including other sectors of the economy. So it is a little bit hard for me to get a real handle on this number because this is the first time they are including some of the service sector items. Now, I am suspecting that they're doing that because they're including items, in my opinion, that they should not be including in the GDP number. Now, you've heard me talk about this since April of last year when they made the announcement they were going to recalculate the way they calculate GDP. And I said it was more smoke and mirrors listen, if you can't get to 2.5% or 3% GDP, what do you do if you're the government? Well, if you're this government, what you do is you change the way and what you calculate in that to get you a better number. That's what we do. We've got this whole smoke and mirrors manipulation thing down pat. So that's what you do. Now, we're the only developed nation, well, Japan is as well. So us and Japan are the only two developed nations in the world that are including now some of the items that we include in our GDP growth. That's why it's difficult for me to get excited about a 2.5% or even a 3% GDP growth because I believe that going by the old numbers, it's still a nothing growth economy. And what we are seeing when we look at the housing numbers and all the other poor numbers that have come out, There's an interesting article about my outlook in the upcoming weeks in my newsletter this week, and I'm talking about some of the reality that is beginning to set in. When you look at all of these numbers and you understand that apparently, even in light of these numbers, the Fed is going to continue to cut their bond buying. Now, China announced yesterday that they were reducing their U.S. debt by $53 billion. In other words, they're saying to the government, hey, not only are we cashing in on some of this debt, we're not buying anymore. We're not cashing in on the $53 billion that has come due and then putting that money into another $53 billion. We're not interested in doing that. So they're cutting once again what they're buying of U.S. debt. So what do? Well, our number one debt holder now is not China. We know that. It's the Fed. So does that mean that the government leans on the Fed to say, wait a minute, hold off here? Somebody's got to buy this debt. And if China starts cutting and other countries start following suit, like Japan and other nations, we're going to be in trouble. And you are our buyer of last resort. Ben Bernanke, if he's done, in my opinion, he's done some things that were very good and maybe kept us from a depression. Maybe. But, or at least for the time being. But he also did some horrible things. But the biggest mistake that he made was, I think, that Ben Bernanke is solely responsible for the politicizing of the Fed, in my opinion. So I don't know what Janet Yellen's position is going to be on this. If they lean on her, is she going to say, hey, we're the Fed, we're a private organization, you're the government, you do whatever you want to do, we'll do what we've got to do for the monetary system that we've been charged with. We'll see. But interesting, as we look at China cutting, what did I say, 53 billion? I was wrong, it's 43 billion. That was because I went from my head and didn't look at my notes. $43 billion. By the way, teenage unemployment at an all-time low. Can't get a job. New rules for foreign banks take place today. Those banks that are operating here in America have to have higher deposit, higher equity positions, higher cash on hand, loan to debt ratios now than they did. They are saying this is going to cost them money. They can't stay here and operate. This is going to cause more layoffs probably, and they may pack up and leave. That'll be a good thing for the Big Five. The big information, I guess, and the thing that everybody's talking about right now that came out by the CBO, I'm sure President Obama is saying, my word, can we do something to get this guy fired? Why is it that he is still trying to maintain some sort of nonpartisanship? Don't they know that we are a partisan government and they're either on my side or they're not going to be on any side before long? I mean, what is this guy thinking? He comes out with another report right in the middle of all the conversations going on about raising the minimum wage. I submit to you that as a result of the report coming out of the CBO, that you can count on the minimum wage increase being scrapped at least until December, but not likely even in December. We're not likely to see any conversation on it until next year. Because now the CBO comes out and says that, yes, there is likely going to be 800, 900 million people that are going to be pulled out of poverty as a result of a higher minimum wage. That's nice. But he's also saying that we're likely to lose 500,000 or more jobs as a result of a hike in the minimum wage, and it's going to start to cost consumers more money. Very interesting. And that plays right in to what Charles Krauthammer said last night. And Krauthammer said that all the raising of minimum wage is going to do, and the CBO confirmed this or confirms this is a transfer of wealth, if you can call it that, a transfer of wealth from those people that are barely getting by on the minimum wage to more people that are in poverty that are barely getting by. But those that are transferring out of that are going to lose their jobs and replace those that are getting the jobs. It's insanity. So all this is going to do is lift some out, but hurt so many others. And we've got confirmation of that from the CBO. So I would suspect, now they're trying to, the administration is trying to put a happy face on the CBO report while they're ready to shut that whole department down right about now. So very, very interesting. By the way, yesterday the Dow closed down 23. The other indexes were in positive territory. The Dow primarily down because of Coca-Cola, by the way. So not a whole lot to think about. I mean, Coca-Cola had the worst day it's ever had. Coca-Cola down, I forget what it was, 3.4%, 3.2%, something like that, a one-day drop. They're a component of the Dow. That's a big factor in the Dow. That probably had a lot to do with the Dow seeing a downturn of 24. So, but all the major indices right now, based on this housing report coming out in negative territory. So we'll have to watch that. We'll watch that closely as soon as they open up. We'll take a good look. We'll take a good look at that. But right now, everything is scheduled to be in negative territory. Interesting, the pound falls against the dollar in the UK. The UK jobs report came out just a little while ago, a couple hours ago, and it came out and it indicated that the unemployment rate went up to 7.2%. All of those in the Eurozone were pretty much expecting that it was going to go down to 7%. So now the 7% mark, by the way, was the mark in which the Bank of England said that they would raise the interest rates. If we can see unemployment get down to 7%, that was their milestone. Well, instead of going down to 7%, it's going up to 7.2%. It seems like economists are missing it all around the globe. Everywhere they go, they seem to be missing these things. And I think that should be a little bit of a warning sign. And again, I speak about that warning sign a little bit in my newsletter this week. Before we get to the calls, by the way, 866-392-98, 866. 392.98. Very interesting. Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper to approve a controversial Keystone Pipeline. The USA Today reports that Obama is heading to Mexico. I'm reading from USA Today that President Obama headed to Mexico for a one-day North American leadership summit. A North American leadership. So I guess there'd be about 7 people there. But anyway, and two leaders, Harper and Obama, will meet on the sidelines and kind of talk about, possibly talk about Keystone Pipeline. But an administrative official says Harper is not likely to hear anything new from the American counterpart. About the pipeline, and of course, we'll likely hear something to the effect that we will let our Canadian friends know when we have made a decision. That's about all he's going to hear as far as the Keystone Pipeline. Of course, the Keystone Pipeline cannot be a priority because we all know that the number one priority in our economy today is global warming. President doesn't want to lose focus on that. And if I'm not mistaken, won't the Keystone Pipeline bring oil into the country and around the world? And it's going to contribute to global warming? How do you balance that? We'll be right back.